Good morning. I'm with Dustin Perry, CEO of Kingfisher Metals. The symbol is KFR on the TSX Venture. And Kingfisher is out with news this morning on hole 11 at Lower Hank. This is a very interesting news release that we're going to need to dive into quite a bit here. Hey, Dustin, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. I'm better after reading this news release. So to me, this looks like a very important hole that we need to understand a lot better. So what's going on at Lower Hank?
Yeah, so this hole is a game changer for the company. It's not just to be clear, we didn't hit an intercept like the higher grades you're seeing at Williams, but what we did hit is we basically glanced the side of a porphyry that looks to be very large, and it looks to be situated directly under the high-grade gold mineralization at Hank. And the big question that has always been surrounding Hank is, you got one of the largest gold footprints in the Golden Triangle, which is, a prolific gold-rich region. What is driving it? And we went into exploration a couple years ago on this project thinking, there's either a cluster of Williams-like deposits situated underneath this area, there's more of them, or there's just a really big porphyry underneath Hank. And part of why Williams has good grade and has the potential to that along with a few other of these can build a resource, but we've focused on Hank early on because it's there and we can push it further and really understand how to target these things. And some of what we've learned there has been applied to the Hank area. But honestly, a lot of what went into the targeting here was just good geology and pretty things that some companies might think of obscure. At surface, we mapped contours of pyrite abundance and saw a swell in the area of where we collared this drill hole. And it looked different than everything else. And it looked like it was pointing towards a different signature than the upper level epithermal mineralization. So what this hole did was it went to over 950 meters, longest hole of the program, collared in similar rocks that you would see elsewhere in that part of the project. It went down potentially through a continuation of the Lower Hank deposit. There's some epithermal vein textures in there with some disseminated lead and zinc, so that there could be an epithermal hit in there. Don't want to overpromise on that, but it looks similar to what you see elsewhere. But then it just gets into porphyry copper mineralization quite abruptly, and it is a long intercept. So it's over 400 meters staying in porphyry copper mineralization. And what you're seeing is not actually the core of a porphyry. You're seeing a very impressive halo to a porphyry, though. You're seeing higher vein density and more intense veining than you see at any other porphyry in this district. You're seeing some dikes that bring in some potassic alteration quite a ways, because we're not in the core of it yet. So you're seeing these dikes coming quite a ways out. And you're seeing copper in every piece of core you pick up over 400 meters, predominantly pyrite. So you're not in the core yet. And, to get really good grades, you want to be in just chalcopyrite or chalcopyrite plus bornite. But the fact that we're seeing this much copper pushed out laterally from a system, it just has a bigger copper signature than the other porphyries in this belt. Our chief geo did a master's degree on KSM and saw a lot of similarities to Mitchell there in terms of the veining and the vein density and just intensity of it. And the big key is, as we went down the hole, the chalcopyrite to pyrite ratios increased. So you got a higher degree of chalcopyrite as you get down the hole, and then the geophysics really backs it up, because we did more geophysics IP in that area, and it ticks basically all the boxes here, and the scale of it is huge. So it's great. Gail and I, when we saw the core on site, we gave each other a big hug. This is a huge breakthrough for the company. I was saying to Gail that early on in the company, the goal is to find a 1 billion ton porphyry always. If you're looking for porphyries, you want to find something big that everybody's going to want. And we've had a lot of learnings and improvements on our targeting over the last couple of years, but this was kind of a breakthrough moment where it's like, holy shit, we figured out how to find things underneath this epithermal system. and we're really onto something. And in my mind, our odds of like hitting out of the park next year have just gone up an order of magnitude because this thing looks big and juicy, and we know where it is now.
The drill core looks really impressive. I want to talk about that in a little bit, but let's just go back in time. And so you said, you have this big footprint at surface. You have gold in soils. You've got a big alteration footprint at surface, and the previous operators, including back in the late 80s, drilled some pretty nice gold intercepts here in the Hank area. Did anybody think, well, maybe we need to go deeper here to actually find a porphyry, or did they just stay with fairly shallow holes?
Yeah, so historic drilling back at that point in time, you rarely drilled deep. And I think the understanding of the porphyry epithermal continuum wasn't that well understood back then. They were not looking for porphyries here. A lot of the assays don't even have, like most of the assays from back then have no copper assays. They changed that a little later on and started assaying copper, and you get the odd vein, but it's not a porphyry vein. You can tell a porphyry vein from an epithermal vein pretty easily if you're a geologist, and yeah, you get a little bit of copper in the epithermal veins, but this big gold anomaly has very little copper in it, like below background. And that's probably because it's more in the lithocap environment, it's leached out a bit, and then later on, like 1 million years or 2 million years later, the final pulse comes up and you get the epithermal system on top. But because of telescoping, that distance has been compressed, and often you might be looking at a kilometer of separation or more between them. Here it appears to be pretty close. So no, they didn't drill anything deep. They did propose though hole 6, which we drilled. So they were focused on that upper Hank area. I'll just bring up a map and show you. One sec. So they were focused in this area here predominantly at the pit area, which has a non-compliant historical resource, that shallow at surface effectively resource. So they'd done the drilling there, and there's a breccia body on surface here, which they had proposed an 800-meter hole in the 1980s, which is kind of like unthinkable. Like I think maybe Russians were drilling holes like that at Norilsk, but I don't think anybody else was drilling 800-meter holes back then. So they did propose that hole, and they thought it would be the best spot to find high-grade, high-sulfidation mineralization. We drilled that hole, and it stayed in intense pyrite and really strong alteration. And I don't know what that's going to grade. I don't have a point of reference because all the historic core is filled with anhydrite as well, and that means that after a decade or two, it turns to rubble. So you can't really get much out of that. But we did hit an alteration body here, and it conveniently sits, on the edge of this large thing, of this large porphyry target. And at the bottom of the hole, you actually get into biotite and magnetite, which is giving you a porphyry indicator.
Oh, well, that's a big clue. You're getting hotter.
Yeah, so that was really encouraging seeing that at the bottom of this hole, but it's still, we weren't seeing like characteristic porphyry veins. Then you get on this side at hole 11, and approximately here on the hole, you're getting into it. And I'll just show the section view. So you've got this broad chargeability anomaly, which has been refined from what we had on our maps in the past, because we tightened up the spacing and added more IP to this area. So now what you're seeing is this strong chargeability anomaly here and a strong chargeability anomaly on either side of it. And then in the middle, it's still strong chargeability, but it's not as strong. And what causes that where you want to be in a porphyry is you often want to be, a halo of your phyllic and pyrite alteration, which is more chargeable than your chalcopyrite mineralization, your bornite mineralization.
The IP signature looks exactly like a porphyry to me. I mean, that's actually textbook.
Oh, it's perfectly textbook, and the fact that you've got a magnetic anomaly on top, from the airborne magnetic, we're working on trying to resolve that. A lot of the near surface mineralization is demagnetized, so it's tricky for us to resolve this in a 3D model, but it does show up on every survey, the fact that you do have this magnetic anomaly that sits exactly where you would want it to sit, which is pretty convenient. But this hole, it got into porphyry alteration, and it was in what we're calling a distal character, and it progressively got hotter and hotter. And the core area is not tested with this hole, but we got a pretty clear indication of where to go on our next year's program. And it's just basically going to be drilling holes like this into it. And they're not going to have to be as long as this hole. So this was our last hole of the program. We got to, I think, around 900 and close to 950 meters, and 959. And you know, we're not in the like ore body of a porphyry yet. We're on the edge of it, but how far are we going to push this hole without looking like idiots? And and also, you know, we pushed it far enough that we'd get as much lateral coverage, and I'm glad we did, because things got hotter towards the bottom. So we know we're going in the right direction here. So we wanted to get the vectors and all that. And obviously we need to wait to see gold grades in here. I'd be surprised if there isn't gold here, given that all the other porphyries in this district carry gold, and you're directly below a gold system. That would be a major head scratcher if it didn't have gold, but we can't see that. So
you said more than 400 meters of porphyry alteration in hole 2511, including you're seeing chalcopyrite like basically all throughout the bottom of that hole.
You're seeing it actually over that 400 meters in varying amounts. The key is it's predominantly pyrite with chalcopyrite, but as you get further down, that ratio changes, and you're getting into higher chalcopyrite relative to pyrite.
So that's consistent with transitioning from the pyrite halo to the ore shell. Do you feel like you were on the edge of the ore shell possibly?
I think we're getting pretty damn close. You know, like the bottom of the hole is probably getting reasonable. I don't think it's that far to go. If we'd gone 200 meters more, we might have been into it. But the big question is it would it have been off that line, because you're drilling one hole? And like, I'd rather go back at it with more drill holes. So if it's not one way, you step out the opposite way and drill that way.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe you'll hit on both sides of it. That will be a question that will get answered next year.
So you're seeing more chalcopyrite towards the bottom of the hole. Are you also seeing more moly towards the bottom of the hole?
Yeah, quite a bit more moly towards the bottom of the hole. And you're getting more potassic veins downhole, a lot more magnetite. It's just getting hotter, but you're still not in like a porphyry intrusion yet. But resistivity here, like you in a true porphyry, you're with the like an intrusion in the middle, it should be more resistive. And you would expect, especially with the epithermal minute surface, a lot of clay alteration giving a conductivity high, and it just fits so perfectly here.
Oh yeah, look at that. Jeez. This could be in a textbook maybe. Jeez.
It does fit perfectly, and you know but the nice thing is that you've got this signature up higher here, so you could be pretty close to actually getting in grade fairly, not like at surface, but I don't think we're gonna have to drill this deep to test this target going forward. And it's in a pretty good environment. The slope isn't crazy where it is. It's 12K to the highway and the power line out this way. It's kind of like exactly where you would want to locate a porphyry on the project, and it has the benefit of having all this gold mineralization at surface. So it's ticking all the boxes here, and it's from a risk standpoint, this is about as good as it gets.
Yeah, it's a screamer target. So the scale potential here, I'm just looking at the scale bar. The distance between hole 11 and hole 6 that you drilled this year, that's about 1,500 meters. So there's a lot of room in there to get filled in.
There's a lot of room, but keep in mind that the magnetic anomaly is actually going, I think, around 1,800 meters in the pane that you're viewing.
I see.
So it's and we would expect that that's the general structural trend in the area. It's going to be elongated in the direction you're looking. These are structural. You know, every deposit has a structural component, but these things in the Golden Triangle often have a elongate shape to them. And I would imagine that it's going this way. So it should be relatively easy to test with fences. Yeah, it's got a lot going for it. I'll just run through what some of the photos look like. So, we were getting into this a little higher up in the hole. Let me just make sure I got the depths on here. So this is at like 588 meters. So we're into it here. Just intense quartz veining. Like this is very high energy. You are seeing magnetite and potassium feldspar in places up here. There's pyrite and chalco in there. And this type of texture is just completely blasted rock. Like a small porphyry isn't going to create this. A big porphyry is going to create this.
Right.
Same with this type
of
shit.
Look at that. Jeez. Wow.
Yeah,
that's an example of sheeted veins. Textbook.
Yeah. And then, you get further down, you're starting to see this. So there's K-spar popping up in here. This is predominantly chalco in here, big clots of magnetite. So you're getting a hotter alteration like signature right here, which is, it fits the model. You're going towards the core. You're getting hotter. Still getting intense sheeted veins. You can see in here with chalco veins with magnetite around them. So it's just confirming everything. Lower down, you're getting a lot more moly. But then even within these photos, like quite a bit of fine-grained disseminated chalcopyrite. And again, want to set expectations realistic here. This isn't, we didn't drill into the core of a porphyry, but seeing this abundance of chalcopyrite on the flank of it is very, very encouraging, and bodes very well for getting into it. And then right near the bottom of the hole, things are definitely picking up.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful stuff.
Yeah. So it was it's funny, we were talking as a team. It's like the story of this is writing itself. Like we planned this hole, it was hole 7, and like obviously I wish we had this result on hole 7 because we would have put a lot more meters into this. But at the same time, we trusted our targeting.
It's the cliffhanger. You left it on a cliffhanger at the end of the program. It's classic.
Well, but the key is we trusted our targeting and came back and had to finish on this hole and then pushed it far. And I'm glad we did. And it's a great exploration success for the team here.
I mean, so Hank is now moved up the list to an A+ target in my book. That's the target that has to get drilled next, and you got to put a number of holes into that to really figure it out. So about expectations, we got a bunch of holes pending assays. You said, okay, hole 11 is not the Grand Slam home run hole, but the core looks pretty good to me. I mean, what can you say, about expectations, for that hole? Is it just going to come down to the gold grades?
I guess so. I think, like, if for a pretty sage resource investor that sees targets and whatnot, they're going to look at this and say, okay, they've really de-risked the potential for hosting a very large porphyry here. Somebody who's not that experienced in investing in this might not appreciate it as much. We're not going to drill 400 meters of 0.5% copper equivalent. I don't think so. Who knows what the gold grades are going to be? We can't comment on that, and my guess is as good as anybody else's. But the key is, like, it's getting hotter down to the bottom of the hole, and we know where to point the hole, which is the whole thing with exploration. Is you get your ground, and some people have shitty projects, some people have great projects. I would put this in the category of it's a great project with a lot of targets, but until you know where to point the drill, like, your odds are pretty low that you're going to hit something. And I would say our odds of hitting something pretty significant next year are quite high, actually. It's a hell of a lot higher than when we picked these drill targets for earlier in the year, and we were coming into it relatively blind. Now we actually know there's a porphyry there, and we know where approximately it's sitting, and it's going to be pretty focused exploration in that area.
With just hole 6, would you, so let's say, you didn't drill hole 11, you just had hole 6. Did that give you, enough information to say there's a porphyry down there, or was it still not 100% clear?
Well, okay, we've always believed there's a porphyry under there. It's just where is it? And even with the target, the scale of this one, you can still, drill your brains out trying to find it. The bottom of that hole was pretty indicative of getting towards a porphyry, seeing magnetite and biotite. And just being in a breccia like that, it's definitely related to the porphyry epithermal environment. But it didn't necessarily give us this gave us way more confidence. Let's just leave it at that. Like it is, a huge amount of confidence to go test this target now. It's a no-brainer. I know some other people like Antonio said, would you remortgage your house to build this target? This is the closest I've come to actually thinking about that.
Would you mortgage your house, Dustin, to put a few more holes into Hank?
I don't know. We weren't going to do it at the end of the season because you're fighting weather as the season goes on, and we wanted to keep our budget under control this year. But and we hit the budget and probably went a little bit over pushing this hole. But next year, if the market fell apart, I probably would look at doing something like that. I'd definitely sell everything else I own and put it into this.
Okay. And, with the epithermal gold that's much closer to surface, how many holes did they drill back in the 80s there? And is there a thought to do a program of shallower holes to really show, if there's scale there?
Yeah, so I want to say it was around a little bit more than 100 holes and 20,000 meters or so in the Hank area. Some of them were more recent, but the bulk of that was older, at least the bulk of the number of holes. So we're very intrigued by the epithermal story there. There's been one missing data set that we need, as a pretty advanced technical team to really go about it. And that's LiDAR. And we did have LiDAR flown this summer. We're still waiting on that. But once we have that, you can accurately model things in 3D. If you're looking at veins and structures, you really do need the high resolution topographic data to predict. And with LiDAR, you can zoom in and look and see veins themselves on the ground and kind of like correlate them. So we'll be using that to try to figure out where ore shoots are within that area. And ideally, if the capital's there, we would like to test some of the gold targets next year. And that's part of why we did LiDAR. It's not like we're just jumping on the gold bandwagon now. Like, it's funny. I've heard people talking about us as we're a copper company. It's like, well, we're in a golden triangle. Like, gold companies want these porphyries. Look, Seabridge Gold, those are copper gold porphyries. Red Chris, that's a copper gold porphyry run by Newmont. They're copper gold porphyries, but there's a lot of gold kicking around, and you have epithermal mineralization at surface. So you've got both, and that's the kind of metal profile I like to be in. You got exposure to both booms, and copper's coming.
So this porphyry target is really getting dialed in at Hank. You did a lot of work during the season, including more MT, more IP, a lot of surface sampling and mapping, LiDAR, you said. Is any of that data going to help you to dial in to this target at Hank in the next season?
I would imagine that the MT would. We've only seen preliminary data, which is not that useful because it's not corrected for terrain. And when you're in the mountains, you definitely need a terrain correction. But we should have that, this fall. And then, that's pretty much the bulk of things for this area. A lot of the work was further along this trend to the northeast, filled in a ton of gaps in soil sampling. And then the MT covered a very large area. So there's a lot of other targets that we'd like to advance as well. And having MT is going to be a big factor in that. And then more IP coverage elsewhere in the area, and mapping and things like that. So I feel pretty good with what we have right here, but there's a little bit more to come that will help it. But I would definitely drill that target without MT right now. You've got enough data layers to be pretty damn confident in it, but we'll see how the MT affects it.
Yeah, what a screamer target there at Hank. Well done, Dustin. Thanks a lot for your time this morning, and I look forward to being on the stage with you in Vancouver, this weekend.
Yeah, it'll be great. We will. I got the crew to ship drill core down, and there might be some core available from this in my office before then. So if so, I might bring a few pieces down. But thanks a lot, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Very cool. Thank you.